Hello, hello, hello. First, let me apologize for my bad English. I'm not really used to speaking in English, so yeah. So we have that out of the way. I'm gonna put some gameplay here, gameplay footage, but this is gonna be a rambling video, so feel free to put this on a second monitor or minimize, whatever. So what's this video gonna be about? About monetization, specific to video games. Yeah, so video games are usually not passion projects as much as we would like that to think. They can be, of course, full of art, but they are in the end a product, and as such, they have to be monetized. Yeah, in this video, I wanna focus my thoughts, organize my thoughts. Hopefully, have some of you give your opinions so I can modify my thoughts. So, I care a lot of video games, and yeah, monetization can make or break a video game. That's just how it is, sadly. So I want to talk about three types of monetization. No, the three I could think of: subscriptions, buy-to-play, and free-to-play. So the most expensive one in most cases would be subscriptions. Obviously, there's a big pro of subscriptions that you have a predictable income from the developer's point of view. But that's the only pro I can think of, really. So, the big con, of course, is the high barrier to entry. It's a lot of money usually. You have to pay it every month. And if you are young, your parents probably don't want to pay a monthly fee for anything. So, if you have like Netflix subscriptions or something, most people, well, just have it and forget it, even if they don't use it. But it's just accepted that that is the way. But if you, at least for me, that's the case. If I subscribe to a game, I have the feeling that I need to get my value out of that. So that diminishes my enjoyment just by default. If I have to earn, re-earn my value. But I think for some games that can work. Let's see, for example, World of Warcraft. You have like $10 or $15, I think. Is it? It's not that expensive if you think about it for a month or something. You can test it, maybe, if you want. Yeah, of course, in the long run, it's pretty expensive. But that also means you have a lot of time playing that. And the company has a lot of costs that are somehow gonna be paid, right? So that might even be fair in a sense. And for those types of games that has like a lot of upkeep, like servers and stuff, and maybe there's a version of DLC, like new content, or at least some new content. Yeah, then there would also be some value you get back for that money, obviously. Yeah, so for some very few select games, I think that's a very valid model, but only a few though. So the next model would be buy-to-play. It's probably the go-to model for most games. Makes sense. You have a product, there has to be a value, and that's obvious here. That's the price. Take it or leave it. It's the easiest model and therefore a go-to for most. The barrier to entry is not that high, but also not very low. So it's somewhere in between, obviously, depending on the price. So if there's no demo version, sometimes it might be hard to gauge the value of a game. So that, obviously, in the world of streaming has mostly subsided, I would say, but I still feel it in some cases. When I buy a game and suddenly, oh, that's kind of different than I expected. Steam now has a policy, I think, where you can return a game, and I think usually you have some right to return games anyway, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't really use those systems. So there's also a problem with this, because the product has to be finished, right? So there's only one price tag, and you want a finished product for like all the money you're gonna spend on that game, kind of. Well, if it's only buy to play, that is, of course. But what we often see now that that is not a finished game, full of bugs often. Well, and I have to be careful if you want to buy it or not, or maybe wait a little bit or something like that. But in the end, it anyway has to be a finished product. So what do we do if we want to change anything about that? Maybe add content. Well, now it would be a DLC. DLCs are often not received very well, depending on what's in it, but can be done right, I think. Can be a good option to also sell a DLC to a game. Now you have the problem though, if someone doesn't have the game and doesn't have the DLC, now do we have a bundle? Make it cheaper? Is that fair? Someone might pay maybe double if you say, if you buy the DLC, we get both after like, I don't know, a few years or so. It's not really that easy at all. And if your game has upkeep, like maybe an MMO or something, well, how do you factor that in? It's gonna be expensive to keep it up and running. You're gonna need new players. Does this change the product? It's not always as straightforward or not as fitting for some games. But if you have a single player adventure game, for example, I think this is a very good solution. And it's very easy, but not without its problems, right? Then of course there's the whole problem with early access. I'm not really gonna get into that much here, because it's kinda our fault, really. Just wait until you have a game that's, well, finished enough, let's say, where you get your value back. I think that's usually possible in most cases. And the whole Kickstarter thing, right? That's also something that has to be enjoyed with caution. The last model I want to talk about is free-to-play. Well, free-to-play is kind of a misnomer, but someone's gonna pay for it. That's just how it works. Maybe not you specifically, but it's gonna have to be paid somehow. The big pro, of course, for free-to-play is the low barrier to entry. Everyone that has a machine that can run the game can play it, or can at least try it. There obviously are some models that are not really free-to-play, more like a demo version. So, for example, I think Guild Wars 2 was it, that has like it's free until a specific level, or the DLCs are not free, but the but the base game is, right? So those I wouldn't really count as free to play. Well, what was it? The MMO that there was a game that has like a lot of content locked behind the paywall. Anyway, if a lot of the game is locked behind the paywall, it's not really free to play. It's free to try and then buy to play later on usually. And then of course this free to play game has to be monetized somewhere anyway. So most games go the cosmetic route. And that has its own problems, of course. For some games it works out fine, I think. There are good examples of that. The first comes to mind is League of Legends. The skins have problems for sure, but all in all, I think it's a solid solution for League of Legends. The best example I can think of is probably Warframe. There might have been changes. I don't know. I haven't played it in a long time, but Warframe had a pretty good system where you, well, we would call it Fashion Framer's Endgame, where you could technically get most things in the game, but it's not that easy for free to play. And if you want, you can, well, it's like a currency, right? You could just exchange real money for the in-game currency and, well, get what you want. But that also has its problems, I'm not gonna lie, for sure. The biggest problem, of course, is when the cosmetic breaks the game. That is pretty obvious when you have like an MMO, and I've seen this very often, that at some point it changes publisher and they want to get every last drop of, well, money they can squeeze out, so they just release a lot of cosmetic that change the tone of the game. Suddenly you have cars in a medieval game, something like that, right? You can imagine probably. For me, that totally breaks the game. I'm not interested in those kinds of games anymore. But some games, cosmetics can work, for example, like League of Legends. I think that's fine. It's not perfect, of course, because it could be much better, right? If you have cosmetics tied to something, like an achievement in the game, you have done something amazing, and now you are the one having a black or golden cape or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like it's a prestige you can earn in the game that would make it even better, right? But that doesn't fit in the free-to-play model, right? At least not with a cosmetic vision. So some games might have a mixed model of these three, or maybe another one I haven't thought about. But that concludes my types of monetization part. Now I want to talk a bit about our position as a consumer in relation to our games. So we have the power. We vote with our wallets, as we say, right? But we have to think about that, right? So if we pay for anything, we are saying that is okay in a way. Or we want that, right? Or we want it at least as much as we are willing to pay for it. So what that means, if we pay for a skin, let's say, in any video game, we're not only saying, hey, we like your game, we are also saying, hey, we like the way you monetize that game. That's something we have to keep in mind, I think. That's not something we should just ignore. I want to hear your opinions. What do you think about my fantasy version of monetization that, in my mind, would be the best, in quotes, solution that doesn't really work, but yeah. So, here it goes. So, every game would just be free, but at the end, end is kind of whatever, doesn't have to be at the end, but you pay just the amount you want. Now, we all can see how that doesn't work, right? But it's like a stance, like a basic stance on things. We don't want to pay for stuff, like even if we see the value. Like, for example, has anybody ever thought about paying for Google search? Probably not, like 2 people or so. But it's a product, technically. It has value, you use it, and so somehow it should be paid for, right? We just accept ads because that's the easy option, because it's not really our money in some way, shape or form, but in the end it obviously is, right? But anyway, I think this could work in theory. We know in reality it doesn't, but in theory I could imagine that working. Well, we see some of it if we look at streaming or Patreon, right? So some projects are just getting funded because people like the project. And this also would open up everyone that before that version that's free, and now some people just pay what they want because they can and want to, for everyone that before that version couldn't, because it had to be a price tag, or, well, even if it was free to play before then and had to be paid in some other way, for example skins, and that changes the game in some way. Now that in the end means the product now changes too, though, right? There's also that problem. No solution is problem free. Now the product is beholden to the one that pays on Patreon or on Twitch. The creators are beholden to their viewers, right? In some way, shape or form, of course. Nothing is perfect, but I think we should distance ourselves on this thought that stuff that isn't tangible, like a software, just being free. I think that's not a good solution. Because in the end, the companies have to earn the money back. At least earn the money back, right? So the solution we see nowadays, most of the time, are ads. And they are so perverse nowadays. Last time I saw an ad in my driver software for my mouse. I couldn't believe my eyes. How the fuck are we okay with this? Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So as consumer, we have the last word, right? So we have the money, we have the last word, we have the power. As we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. Alright, bye-bye. Thanks for watching. That's it. If you have any thoughts, opinions regarding the topic, regarding this video, I am a novice in this, so feedback would be much appreciated. And have a good one.